Yeah, I will discuss linear regression and logistic regression in this class. So probably those are not in on CNNs. Those are like conventional linear and logistic regressions. Though they don't have direct relevance to CNNs, they are useful for probably little better understanding when regression blocks comes in CNNs, and standalone regression has its own importance. So that I plan to discuss in case if you people have not enough questions or doubts. Yeah, any other questions? Aravind? He's not there. He's there, right?
Sir, I haven't watched the last video. So, I'm yet to watch that one. I watched the other two.
You could not watch, but other architectures video.
Yeah, architectures, it's fine. So no doubt.
Okay. So few other students, Vamsi. Or Vaishnavi?
The first two I watched, sir. They were fine.
Okay.
I haven't watched the last one. I'm fine with first two.
Okay, you watched first two. So most of you people have watched CNN architectures, not the last one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. It's okay. So last one you can watch, and if you people have any doubts on last one, and the yesterday itself one more video lecture is uploaded, right? So that's on application of CNN to different computer vision tasks such as object detection, segmentation, tracking, depth estimation, and so on. So that if you have any doubts on both of them, we can discuss in the next class. Okay. Fine. So a few other students, I see some like BTech students, Satvik or Devayan. Any other students? I just want to listen. What? Few more like queries from your side so that I can start. So as I said, I will only discuss those questions you have. Okay, I will skip the things and move on to the next lecture now. So MTech students. Koshrazu?
I haven't gone through videos, sir, at all. Only one video I watched.
Okay, none of the video lectures you watched?
CNN architectures 5A only I watched, sir.
Okay, so that you understood?
Yes, sir, I understood up to that.
Okay. Fine. So ask others to join. I don't see others joined here. So Samir and Meenu, if she is there, you can take the
yes, sir.
Yeah, you can take the attendance.
Now only, sir, very few people are joined. That's why.
Yeah, just wait for another 10 minutes and then take probably.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another 5-10 minutes is good enough. I think 5 minutes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Few more things. Anyway, officially communication will come to you people.
Yes, sir.
So it's likely that your semester teaching will end 2 weeks after conveying, like after our calendar timelines. So
yes,
because we have missed 2 weeks in between, right? So formally,
yes, sir.
by May first week or so, your classes will supposed to be completed. And however, if you people have interest and the faculty also find interest and all, so some of them may take class. That's up to your both interest. And your exams will third year, second year and first year students will possibly come to the campus by July 13th or so. So you will not have exams immediately, even MTech first years. So you people may not have exams immediately, and you will have exams on July 13th onwards, and after that the next semester continues. That is the current plan, but you will receive formal mail giving the exact timelines and other things. For final year students and MTech final year students, those who are doing projects and about to complete this year their studies, they will they will come back by June 1st and finish off their submissions and go back go to their respective companies or wherever. So their they will complete their studies at IIT Tirupati after June 15th, 20th, like that. So that is the current plan. Those subjects where you have a mix of third years, final years and all, then probably separate exams may be held. For you people, different exam, and for them, different exam. So that's tentative plan for now. So hopefully it formally gets communicated to you soon. So what I'm thinking is for our course, so today probably I will discuss linear regression. Once I discuss linear regression, what CNN applications we have discussed almost various like aspects of CNN convolution neural networks. So mostly in the next class, I will discuss GANs, generative adversarial networks, and subsequently 1 or 2 classes on RNNs. With that, deep learning we probably close. So and then with clustering, hopefully we will wind it up. So tentatively we may have like 4 more classes or 2 more weeks from now on. So before May 1st week or within May 1st week, we will wind up our course. That is the current plan. So meanwhile, you can figure out if you you try to go through all the video lectures I sent and be ready, so that actually before we close formally, you can very well clarify your doubts. Of course, even after that you can ask, but you have to take your own interest to talk to me or get clarified from. And meanwhile, I think one written assignment I plan to give, but still I hope not given. Samir, what is status of previous written assignments and programming assignments? They're all closed.
Sir?
They're all submission dates are closed, or
we extended, I think, assignments, sir.
okay. So up to what time?
Sir, let me check with.
Yeah, fine. So you people can tell better, Aravind, or any BTech.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. Both are close.
So see, if some students really have some network issues or but you people should be very genuine because you're also remote and we're also remote. So we don't, whatever you say, probably there are only, you need to figure out your own ways of doing things rather than complaining the problems. So if you are in that front and still if you need some time for completing few things very genuinely, and if you want to spend some time and do it, you can do it. So that provision I will give, probably with some considerations we will take. So that I suggest each of the CRs. So I think MTech I don't see many. So are there all MTech students here? Hello?
Sir, yes, sir. I'm Shekhar, sir.
Shekhar, all MTech students are here?
Sir, I think Raju and me are here, sir.
That's all. Nobody else is here. So what's happening? Also, send them a message, so that actually if you have a small group, send them a message.
Okay,
They
sir.
have to be here for the class.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Sir, it's already informed, sir, in the group.
Okay, very good. Then leave it. So let them sleep, those who want to sleep. So that is fine, but I think after sleeping and waking up, they should not complain. So they have to, if they want to complain, they have to be sincere, right? Okay, so that's fine. So if you really have some difficulty either in doing some assignments and all, so what I suggest is some you can take little more time, and you can take little even for mini projects. If we really wish to extend, we can extend the timelines, because your semester anyway will not end now. So there is a time, I hope. So let the formal mail come. Till then, 24th, let it be our targeted time. And once the formal communication comes from director or academics, saying that you will have exams only in July and all, and if there are no final year students here, so Akash is there. Is Akash here? I don't think. So Akash Mechanical was there. So few students are there. Other than that, I think we have mostly third year and first year MTechs. So in that way, probably I think we can, if we really want, we can extend the timelines, so that actually you will also get some more time, and you can do little more if you people really want. Okay, that is up to you. So you can decide. I request each of the CRs, BTech and MTech, to coordinate and decide on that with your students, friends, and then probably I think MS PhD students hopefully are flexible. So that's what I'm thinking now. Is it fine? Yeah, who is CR? Nikhil, I think. He's not there. So morning class is difficult under online conditions, is it? Okay, convey Nikhil also to be around. Okay, fine. Yeah. And what I'm thinking is some written assignments. Samir, make sure that there is a written assignment we will be able to give in a day or by tomorrow or so.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm thinking is these written assignments, some of them can be made compulsory to submit, in case if some students are facing very real concern about the doing programming assignments and all, with some it's not complete substitution, but partial substitution can be done with some of the real assignment submissions. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, fine. So let us start discussing the doubts you asked first, and then we will move on to the discussion on regression if time permits. So I will just share the screen now. So out of 27, only 23 has hold here. You are able to see slides now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. So see, the questions now you people asked are on inception block and as well as the ResNet block. Okay, so I will start from the inception block. See, why is the inception block introduced? So some of you have all of you have gone through. So I suggest you people to answer. So why is the inception block, what is the importance of inception block?
It can learn features at different scales.
Right. It can learn the features at different scales. And Saswat, what is your doubt explicitly? Can you ask?
Sir, actually, we are obtaining the different scale feature maps after going through the 1x1 convolution.
Right.
Sir, like how exactly this 1x1 convolution, how do the weights of this block we decide? Like, is it already fixed, or do we learn it through?
No, none of the kernels or weights are fixed. So all will be lent only.
So same goes for the 1x1 convolution as well, right?
Even same goes for the 1x1. So why did we introduce 1x1 convolution blocks before this 3x3? Mainly the inception block is having 1x like multi-scale features. So 1x1 convolution, 3x3 convolution,
Reduction of
5x5. Yeah, that is good enough. So, but why did we incorporate 1x1 convolutions in between?
to reduce the number of trainable parameters.
Right. To reduce the number of trainable parameters and as well as computations later. So because 1x1 convolution, see here if we have 256 maps, so 1x1 convolution may be with only 50 maps. Even if you want finally some say 100 maps, so from 3x3 convolution, I can go from directly going from 200 maps to 100 maps in 3x3 will need the number of computations equal to 3x3 3 into 3 to 200 into 100, right? Those many trainable parameters. And the number of computations is h into w into those many. Okay. So if we incorporate 1x1 convolution here, so it is everywhere. So 1 into 1. So 1 into 1 into 200 into 50 plus 1 into 1 into 3 into 3 into 50 into 100. Fine.
Yeah, so sir, like on convolving with a 1x1 convolution map, what is the output? Like if we have initially some h cross w cross d dimension map, and then what is the output after 1x1 convolution, like the feature map dimensions?
So after 1x1 convolution, you will also get same dimension h cross w. You can maintain the dimension. See, 1x1 convolution, have you understood or not, first of all?
Not exactly, sir.
I will try to see. Let me see if I can get. I will just try to open. OneNote here. It has gone into full. Just let me see. I will just open. Right. Okay. Okay. So now you are able to see the notes here. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, you're able to see notes, right? So here you see what's. So this was the notes. I hope I also shared with you, right? So in the video lecture, it is there. So the discussion of this is there, but I can share separately this as well. See what does 1x1 convolution does. So it is the discussion on 1x1 convolution. See if I have 500 maps, okay, assume that h cross w. I just want to get from 500 maps and some 100 maps, okay. So in some sense, this is also known as bottleneck layer. So why this is called bottleneck layer is I can just see it's like I can confine, I can reshuffle the information and represent in exactly the lesser number of maps I wish to represent. So for example, if I start from 500, I can represent with 100 now. So what's happening in this now? So each map, say each output map now is linear combination of weighted sum of like W1 into first map here plus W2 into second map here and W 500 into 500 map here. That will give one map. Okay. Hello. See, what is convolution here? Usually convolution means what? First convolve with the 3x3 kernel first map, keep it, one result you have. Convolve with another 3x3 and keep this like with second map and keep the next result. Like that you convolve with 500 3x3 kernels and with 500 maps and keep 500 results. Okay, add all of them and get one map. That's what you are doing in while bringing from convolution layer of 500 maps to another set of maps. Fine.
Okay, sir. Now I understand.
Process should be understood. So once you understand convolution with 3x3, now convolution with 1x1 means what? Instead of having a kernel of 3 W1 to W9, okay, W1, W2, W9, that is 3x3 kernel. What you are doing is just single element is now kernel itself. So W1. So what we are doing? We are multiplying the first map with W1, second map with W2, and then like that you are multiplying 500 maps with W500, which are all scalars. Okay, and then weighted sum of all these maps gives one map in the next layer. Like that, I will perform 200 times or 100 times to get 100 maps in the next layer. Now what I'm doing, I'm just reshuffling the information of previous maps. Okay, so already I have extracted some feature maps. They have some information. I just want to compactly reshuffle. But while multiplying and while making linear combinations to reshuffle to the next layer, I can decide which weights to use. That weights can be learned on the fly while in the process of minimizing the cost, and thus they will be effectively compactly representing the information in lesser number of maps. Fine.
Yes, sir.
I hope 1x1 convolution is clear now. That's what I have written here. Yj, any map in the next layer, is linear combination of Wi xi. Okay, where xi is the map in the previous layer, and a summation is over I, and such all weighted combination will give one map. Like that, if I reach, so I will finally get. So the number of weights I use, learnable weights here is 1x1, cross 500, cross 100. Okay. But if I use 3x3 kernel, then 3x3, so 9 times of whatever that is. I use with 1x1. So it is very computationally intensive. 10 times means order 10 power. Another 10, another 10 gets added to the order, right? So now this discussion you can understand better. Okay, so this was to get the multi-resolution multi-scale features, and here what we are doing is we are incorporating 1x1. I can now adjust the number of maps. It's up to me. So while both this gets multiplied with 20 and this gets multiplied with 20, rather than both getting multiplied 50 into 200, okay, which is lesser. So just a number which is, say for example, 50 into 200 versus 200 into 20 plus 20 into 50. That is quite lesser. Okay, like that. So same thing also goes. 3 into 3 will come only here. Okay, so you can see that the number of computations computed with bottleneck layers in the inception block is less. Fine.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yeah, ask.
Sir, why do we have a max pooling layer in this inception module? Wouldn't it reduce the height and width, and it could no longer be concatenated in the final output?
Right. See, it is just a reorganization of the information, right? So max pool layer, what it does, it typically, say for example, if a stride equal to 1, if I'm doing max pool with 3x3, for example, what is happening in all roughly for wherever that element is very high, that means in a see each, if some neuron, some feature map has very high value at some location, then what will happen? That gets represented multiple times in max pool layer. So and this gives some direct contribution into the feature map. So I'm just giving more importance to the information which is prominent through max pooling. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So it is not the usual pooling operation. We stride it to.
It is stride 1, right? So it's not conventional max pooling. It is stride 1. So it gets multiplied 2 times, like say it almost in 9 cases if it is overlapping with 3x3 max poolings. then I will have actually 9 times the same information repeated here.
Okay.
And
Sir, what is the max pooling filter length, sir?
It is up to the design. People can take 3x3 or 2x2. Usually those are the common kernel sizes. Common
Sir,
size.
if you take 3x3 or 2x2, won't the output length be smaller?
Yes, that's why actually if usually what people will do is 2x2 with stride 2. Okay, stride 2 max pooling means you for each 2x2 you take and then shift and take non-overlappingly another 2x2. Okay, here max pool with stride 1. That means that you are taking here 2x2 and just next pixel itself you are taking, so 50% overlap even with 2x2. With 3x3 you have 75% overlap. I hope you understood, right? This stride 1 is not very common. Usually when we do max pooling we take stride 2. That's why the dimension gets reduced.
Okay, sir.
So if you take stride 3, it gets reduced by 3 times. It's like that. So max pooling also has stride, but people usually consider stride 2 as default. Fine. So if you have any questions on this, you ask. Otherwise, we will move on to the residual block discussion. Okay. So now coming to this residual connections, see, you can also listen to FIFI team video lectures. They're quite good. So what the discussion for this is motivated by a graph. So what that graph does is, for example, they compare the accuracies of making deeper and deeper layers in a network. Say, assume that if I start with either VZZ kind of framework, so where you have conventional convolution layers followed by subsampling layers, again convolution layers, subsampling layers, finally fully connected layer. And then I start increasing the, say for example, this is the epoch, okay, and this is the loss. Okay, so if I start increasing the, if I keep training for larger and longer and larger epochs, then the loss will reduce. But the thing is, say for example, if I take a network having 26 layers, okay, or some 20 layers, versus if I take a network with 50 layers, how does the thing change? That is of interest. Okay. So now what may happen is, see, if I take a network with 20 layers, the loss may go like this. See, ideally what should happen, if I have a network with say 50 layers, the loss, even if it starts here, it should go down like this. Okay, this is ideal. This is 20 layers, this is 50, ideal 50. Okay, and this is 20. Okay, this is ideally. But what will happen is, if you even if you make the network deeper and deeper, it doesn't go like this. They observe that the network, if it is like just making deep, will not make it loss to decrease like that. So it may decrease like this and it may go like this. So this is with 50 layers. Okay, this is actual. Okay. Fine. So why is this happens is, even if you do even if you increase the network depth, so it is in some sense you are fitting in between input and output a very complex nonlinear function. Okay, so if input is I, or for example I is the image, okay, and what you are doing is output is labels, or say output is O, then some G of O, for example, you are keeping. Okay, this Z maybe, or for example G or whatever. So this is very complex nonlinear function. And if you increase the network depth, what you are doing is, you are in a way more fitting the the mapping between input and output, or the number of training samples that you have, or the input output relationship are much fine tuned to the only training samples through very complex nonlinear fitting. Okay, so people just naively increasing the depth will not increase the accuracies. Okay, that's what is the lesson from these graphs. And once you I understand this, there is a need to figure out better architectures, network architecture. One way of doing better architecture is, say for example, if I have a network, assume that they're all network layers, this is input and output is O. Okay, so now see if there is an error delta Z here. What I want, if the network is very well trained, need to be very well trained, it needs to get the back propagation sufficiently even at the like input layers or shallow layers. Okay, so initial layers. How to get it is, see if I make a skip connection. Okay, while in forward direction, skip connection means what? See the input whatever I have. Say assume that I through convolution layers I get some output. So this output be C1 for example. Okay, and I assume that this output will get directly added with the input I. Okay, in some sense I will make sure that the dimensions and all agree, and then I will add. Okay, so once I add them, what will happen? In the forward direction I'm adding these things, and similarly C2 may be output here. I will just add with again the here output is say O1 if it is. Okay, I will add O1 here. Okay, fine. So like that I keep getting some input, not just from the convolution layers but also from the previous layers through skip connection. This is known as skip connection. Okay, and if I do that, if there is a now in back propagation, you see what will happen. Okay, this also now gets so O2 here and gets directly here, and C3 gets added with O2. Okay, and this is the O. So now in back propagation, you see what will happen. Delta J is here. If I don't have any skip connections, conventionally I will have actually delta O2, okay, and then delta O1, okay, and so on it will go. Now through skip connection, what will happen? This delta J will have directly, for example, if this skip connection is through weight 1, then this delta J directly gets added here in reverse in back propagation. Okay, so this is in back propagation. It gets directly added here. So delta O2 plus delta J will come in some sense. Okay. So our in this branch, whatever is the error plus delta J will come. Okay. So similarly here, delta whatever is error here plus delta O2 will come directly like that. In fact, delta J will come again, delta J will come again, and so on. Okay. That is the advantage of skip connection. So that the error will not get nullified at any like layer, even at the shallow layers. So because of this, they are able to make even 152 layer or 1000 layer networks. Okay, but to see more detail, the skip connection is usually shown like this, wherein the input is here. So you already have some length feature at some layer, and you want to learn further better features or higher level features here. Now this from here to here, what you usually learn is a function f. Assume that. See, if I rg, a function you want to learn is function g, but you, since you already have learned enough features, so what the suggestion from skip connection or other way of interpreting this is, see what you have already learned, you directly leverage also in the input, and you only learn now instead of learning. So instead of learning g, you learn only f. Okay, f of x, which is okay g of x minus x. That means whatever you have learned in before, you need not learn it again. Okay, you just keep it. You just directly take it from through skip connection and learn only whatever. If you really want finally for learning g, learn only g of x minus x. Okay, that is the so because of this, what will happen? The complexity of the network to learn f of x will be simpler. Overall, the new incremental learning that should happen in each of the branch will be much lesser than learning all from scratch again and again, from derived from previous layers. That is the idea of skip connection. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in fact, Yeah, it can also be shown through back propagation equations. So you can also write dou A by dou A by dou X and see how does dou A by dou X is related to this. So if, for example, if I oh, so in some sense dou Z by dou so it can also be derived, it can also be shown through few equations. So you can see the respective paper. So I usually, yeah, it's like this, something like this. So dou delta X, if I want to find now, so it's like delta G, while back propagating, what will happen? Delta G into delta F. Okay. So delta X is in some sense, you can assume that dou X by sorry, dou J by dou X. Okay, dou J by dou X. Okay, is equal to dou J by dou Z here. Dou Z is output here plus in some sense. Okay, dou J by dou F. So it's not very strict, but you can see like this. So the errors also gets added directly. So in the paper you can see little more details. So they have written recurrent equation, and with that you can really see that the error from here directly comes here. So without with just lambda factor. Fine. So is it fine? Okay. Are there any other questions? Hello. Hello. Are there any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so shall we proceed to linear and logistic regressions? Because I think they are not very big details in like given that we have discussed so like so much on back propagation and also on like classification derivatives, and also they are quite simple to understand. So I will discuss now a few ideas on linear and logistic regression. The notes is uploaded in Moodle today, and it's in fact easy to follow. So I will discuss as if in the class now in the like in the, on the notebook here. I'm sharing notebook, and there I will discuss. So you're able to see the notes, I hope, right? Shared notes here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we discuss on linear and logistic regression. See, what is regression? So far, I think we have not formally introduced what is regression. So what is regression? Anybody knows what is regression? I think some of you know. Can you please tell?
Extrapolation or prediction based on existing data.
Okay, okay. In some sense, it is true. But what is difference between classification and regression?
Sir, regression predicts new values. Classification is based on like predicting a certain value of class only.
Assume that, say, for example, I just want to decide the cost of a house. Okay. So assume that there are few parameters. So first parameter is x1, x2, x3. Okay, there are some parameters based on which I want to decide the cost of a house. This is cost. Okay, cost estimate. Okay, so I'm planning. So this is number of bedrooms. X1 feature X1 is number of bedrooms, and feature X2 is say the square feet. Okay, feature X3 is say the location factor, for example, something. Okay, so okay, so location factor or something. Okay, so now assume that based on this, I want to decide cost of the house. Okay, so this is my to buy or to sell, assume that. Okay, so this is the current problem. So now the number of bedrooms let be 2. Okay, and square feet is say 1200 square feet, and location factor let be say between 0 to 1 we give assume that importance, so 0.6 or something. Okay, and then the cost I say is I will just very this may not be very real cost, so I am just giving some say 20 lakhs. Okay, in lakhs. Okay, 20 lakhs. So now assume that this is 3 bedroom. So and then 1800 square feet, and location is 0.4 factories, and then this is 30 lakhs. Okay, so then again say 2 bedroom, 1500 square feet, and location factor is 0.8, and then the cost is say 32 lakhs. Okay, something like that. So now it's if I give like this. So now this is the data I have in my hand. Okay, so given this data, so I assume that this is sample 1 for me. Okay, and then this is sample 2, and then sample 3, and so on up. I may have to sample say 1000. Okay, given these 1000 samples, what my problem is now if I give you, so this is all training data. Assume that. So far what is this is training data. Okay, so given this, what I wish to do is, so I want to calculate in a test data on a test data or a new data. So if given that the number of bedrooms is 2, and then the square feet is say 1000, and importance is 0.9. Okay, what is the cost? Okay, similarly I may have some test data where these values are given, feature values are given, and then I want the cost estimate. Okay, so now this is what I want to do. So this framework is under regression. And what do you think is difference between classification and regression here? So if I want to find this also, I am trying to estimate an output. Okay, in classification also I have training data, I have test data, I am trying to get some output label. What do you think is difference now? Can some of you tell?
Classification gives discrete output and regression gives continuous output.
Right. So here what I am expected to get is a continuous output. Here I may get, say for example, so just 1 minute. Yeah, now you are able to see again notes, I hope, right? You're able to see notes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I may get the estimate as, for example, 25.5 lakhs. Okay, or 25.56 lakhs. So here I will get a real output. So what I want to get is, rather than the predicting some discrete classes or a specific number of class or labels, what I want to get is a estimate here, or a real number between some range or even minus infinity to infinity sometimes. Okay, so that is what is done. Like that framework is known as, referred to as regression. Especially wherever we have continuous outputs to find is referred to as regression. See, now given this background, and let us bring some notation. So x be a feature vector. So x1 to say xd, the features we have. Okay, and then y be the output. Now it's not a label but real output. Okay, so given this, now what I want to get in regression is some function. So y equal to, say for example, some either f of x. Okay, f w of x. Okay, this function is I want to find that will map this x feature inputs to output y, or is this f is a function of w comma x? Assume that. Okay, this is the same thing that we have been doing before. So you can apply all your frameworks that you had before. So you need not have a special framework for this. But we study some known, well-known, simple frameworks, and then we also see how we can leverage apply the existing frameworks that we have. Okay, so now if I want to bring in a relation like this, so what is the simple relation you can bring in? Y equal to, say, given that a w and x. Okay, can what you can, if I want to bring in through linear relationship, what you can suggest? So xb x1 to xd, I have some d features for a given sample. Okay, and then I want to relate the output to the input features. So what is the simple linear relationship that I can bring in? Y estimate, okay, is equal to what?
W into x.
W into x, or W transpose x. Okay, where W is also a set of weights given to these features. Do you agree or not? Okay, so D features gets 3 different set of weights, and then the combination will give D estimate. This is the linear prediction. I am trying to predict the output value through linear relationship or linear combination of input features. Is it fine or not? Now, given this, what is the next step to bring out a formal, like how do I find the weights now, appropriate weights for doing better linear regression? So what
Mean square error.
Yeah, you find a cost function. So now J is for this is equal to y actual minus y truth minus y estimate. Fine, I can bring in like this. Yes or no? Now given this, how do I do? So I will write this half, okay, y true minus W transpose x here. Okay, now see, can you tell how should I write norm square? If I just want to expand and later see what I want to do with this J.
Minimize
Why
it.
I am framing this cost function and all. What do
Optimize.
you want to do with this J?
Minimize it with respect to W.
Yeah, minimize with respect to W. Okay, so now since I want to do minimize with respect to W, I will write this in little expanded form. Okay, I can write like this, right? So now what I want to do, so I want to get an estimate of W. So how do I get the estimate of W? So can you suggest some method to find out a good W or best W that will find that will fit in some sense for mapping features, input features to output estimate? What should I do now? I can. What do we do? Can some suggestions be given by you people?
Gradient descent.
Propagation I can do. So what I can do? First, I can
Differentiate.
find, differentiate. Dose A by, okay, I will write here. Okay, dose A by dou W I can find. Okay, so dose A by dou W is how much here? Some of you can tell immediately. So in vector form also
Why?
you can tell now. So I can also find dose A by dou W J I can find. So if I have W from W1 to WD, then I can write it as dou W. Yes or no? Okay, given this, what is dose A by WJ? YT minus W transpose X into what will happen?
Summation.
No, summation will it come?
XX.
Yeah, into X, that's all. So into X will come. Or see if it is X, WJ if I'm finding X, Jth component of X. So I can write X. Fine. This what will come. Are you people able to follow here? This is just the differentiation that you people have been doing. Okay. So now if I want to update WJ T plus 1, Okay, how do I do it now? WJT, what I'm using here?
WJT minus alpha times DJ by
Minus
DW.
theta times or alpha times. Okay, dose A by dou W, dose A by dou WJ. Okay, so this is what is done in linear regression. So now what I'm doing, dose A, WJT plus 1 is equal to WJ of T minus eta times Y true, like true value of output minus Y transpose, W transpose X into X. Okay, so this I will do for one sample. Okay, so far what I have derived, all this is for single sample. Now, but if I have hundreds of samples and thousands of samples in my training data, then what do I do? Then what do we do? No, some suggestion on it. What do we do?
What, sir?
If we have, like, since we have a large number of samples, what do we do with them? So this is only update for a single sample.
Vectorize.
Yeah. So you randomly pick samples from the data set, okay, and then keep giving this and then update. Okay, so you go exactly like stochastic gradient descent or batch gradient descent. That means you take all samples at once and then find this delta W with respect to all samples, sum them and then update only once. That is batch. Okay. Here also you can do both stochastic gradient descent or batch gradient descent. Fine. And here please note that this is update for only jth weight element, jth component of weight. So if you want to do for all j ranging from 1 to d, I will do. Okay. And then if I want to do this for sample, stochastic gradient descent, I will write explicitly. What do I do now? Oh, pick x, xk, for example, random from training data and update. Okay, update what? For example, JT plus 1 is equal to, I hope this is clear to you all, right? So please ask if it is not clear. Okay. Okay. So like that you do for all j. And then do several times. Okay, do till convergence. Okay, this is stochastic gradient descent. Whereas batch gradient descent, what will be in batch gradient descent? Can some of you tell? Okay, I will wait there. Please tell, what should I do now? Data times, what should it be in batch gradient descent? I don't know.
Summation over.
Summation over, very good.
Summation over I.
Okay, I.
Yt of I.
Okay,
minus.
of I, very good. Okay, minus.
Omega transpose xi.
Xi. Okay, xi or xk, whichever you can use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Into x.
Okay, so this is for j, okay, for all j. Okay, so this is batch gradient descent because you find errors with all I vary from 1 to n. Okay, n samples. Okay, if there are n samples for n training samples. Is it fine now? Okay, this is what is regression. Okay, this is referred to as linear regression. Okay, fine. Okay, so now yeah. So now let us discuss a few relations. So before I move on and discuss logistic regression, let us discuss a small relevance to this with respect to the previous discussions that we had on Bayesian classification and other things. See, assume that in this linear regression, I can assume that y estimate, okay, in some sense is equal to what we said, W transpose into x. Okay, so I can say that y truth in some sense is equal to W transpose x plus there is an error, assume that. Okay, and this is with the say ith sample. Okay, This is with ith sample. Fine. So what I'm saying here is each of the predictions that I get from W transpose X has an error. Okay, that is the gap or the margin to meet to the ground truth values by epsilon I. Okay, this I can consider it as the error in linear regression prediction. Fine, you people are following or not? Okay, I'm just assuming that I'm writing like this. And now assume that this error can be, say for example, this error is a random variable. Do you agree or not? I am slightly deviating from the conventional discussion. Okay, I will go to now probabilistic discussions because I want to bring in some relevance to Bayesian classification or likelihood based classification. Okay, likelihood based frameworks. Okay, so now assume that I want to predict, okay, probability that, okay, I want to estimate yt is equal to y estimate, given that, okay, so given w comma x, okay, xi. This is what I want to write. Okay, so now what I want to write is I want to estimate the probability that I get, estimate yt equal to y estimate such that given these two. So if you want to write its probability, can you tell in what way can I write this? So can you give me any guess on how should I write this kind of probability? Assuming that these errors are random variables and Gaussian distributed. Assume that random variables and they are Gaussian distributed. What do I mean by errors are Gaussian distributed? What do I mean by errors are Gaussian distributed? So if some of you know answer, please tell, okay? Or at least ask question, okay? If you don't know answer, it is fine. You should ask some question. No comments? Arvind? Or Sekhar?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What's happening? You understood? You are understanding what I'm trying to discuss here or not?
Yes, sir. I'm understanding, sir.
Yeah, you should tell then what is we mean by Gaussian distribution error.
Sir, the error terms added here follow the Gaussian distribution with some mean and variance, sir.
Right. So it will have naturally will have mean and variance. What I'm saying is, see what this error is now what in some sense error is okay y ground truth minus y estimate. Okay, this is the error because this is y estimate, right? So for ith sample, this is the error. Okay, so if I now previously like assume that I have found some w, okay, nicely fitted like previous way, and then I found epsilon I for all ith sample. So I ranging from okay 1 to n, okay, n samples. Then what will happen? All I so if I see epsilon 1 to epsilon n and then see their distribution like histogram, then it roughly looks like Gaussian. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so because that it's likely that some of the errors may be very high, some of positive, some of the errors may be negative, some of the errors, most of the errors are close to zero. Okay, if it is properly fit, and hence the errors mostly will be close to zero, and some will be away, and only few will be away. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that errors are roughly Gaussian distributed. If that is the case, what I want to write is the probability that okay yt equal to y estimate given this. So how can I write this probability now? Can you tell? Can some of you tell some idea on how should I write this? This instance p of y given x. Okay, what we are writing is p of y given x. Okay, or okay, for timing we just assume this. Yeah.
It is a Gaussian distribution, same
Yeah,
as
Gaussian distribution. So e power, tell me explicit expression so that I can write it here. So e power, what should I write?
E power y minus yt whole square
so
by
y
2.
minus yt minus y estimate. Okay, whole square. By
Whole square by 2 sigma square.
yeah, 2 sigma square. Sigma square. I will write. What is the sigma square corresponds to? Sigma square corresponds to this. If I am saying is Gaussian distributed, then it will be normal distributed with
Of all the y predicted values.
right? So that sigma square is this sigma square. Okay. So the variance of these errors is sigma square. Fine or not? Okay. And then this is assume that this is 1 by. Sorry. Just 1 minute. 1 by root 2 pi sigma. Okay. So this is what is this? Correct or not? So now this is for ith sample. Okay. This is all what we are writing is for ith sample. Okay. So now this e power minus half. What can I write now? Yti minus W transpose xi. Fine. Whole square. Okay. By sigma square. Fine. So this is alpha times. I just keep for time being. Okay. Now this is for ith sample. Now what can I do with this? So this is for ith sample. Now if I want to write the total likelihood here, okay, y, this is in fact, what is this likelihood or posterior? Is this just one? So what are we writing here? Is this posterior or likelihood?
Likelihood on this.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah, y given x. See, y is our prediction in some sense. Okay, so you can yeah, y is the output and x is the input. So w given x, you can consider it as even posterior also. Fine. But given w, what we are writing is this. Okay. So now, if I want to, what I want to do with this? Assume that if I want to pose the problem differently for finding best w given this probability. Okay, what should I do with this probability? See, this is for single sample, but if I want to do for all samples, this probability, okay, write this probability y given x for all samples. What will I write now? Pi over, right? So, and what should I do with respect to this probability to find best w? That should I maximize this probability or minimize this probability? Should we maximize this probability or to find
Maximize.
Yeah, we will maximize this probability for finding better w. So the problem of finding w can be posed now differently, okay, as maximizing the posterior probability like this, or likelihood of y given the other x and w. Okay, and this has to be done for all samples. So I will write here, assuming that each sample is independent, each sample and its outputs are independent with respect to other sample. I can write like this. This is in some sense p of y given d. Okay, all samples is this, and then y is vector. Okay, assume that. So now this is alpha times e power minus half. What will happen now because of this? What will happen here? Summation, fine or not? Yti minus, correct or not? So now, so maximizing this, so I want to do maximize p of yi given xi for all I, or p of y given d, okay, maximize with respect to w. So maximizing this is equivalent to what? Maximizing this is equivalent to what?
Minimizing.
So it is minimizing I equal to 1 to n yt minus W transpose x. So in the earlier discussion, did we do the exactly same or not? In the earlier discussion, our cost function is
Yes,
same.
sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
right? So this is nothing but mean square error cost function.
Yes, sir.
Minimize mean square error cost function. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is maximize, assuming that the errors, okay, deviations in prediction, okay, linear prediction as Gaussian random variables, okay, maximizing the posterior probability or even likelihood is same as the minimizing the mean square error cost function. Okay, if the probabilities are assumed to be Gaussian. Okay, so this is how the Bayesian classification and this linear regression are related. Fine. Okay, so maximizing like Gaussian likelihoods is equal to minimizing mean square error cost. Fine. Okay. So fine. So what do you think actually? Some of you have class after this, or some of you have class today? Hello? Hello? Shall we continue with linear logistic regression or leave it here? So shall we discuss in the next class?
Next class, sir.
Yeah, fine. Probably we will discuss the logistic regression in the next class. So I have anyway uploaded notes there. So what logistic regression does is it within the same framework that we have discussed, regression framework, it tries to do classification. So how do we leverage the regression framework for classification is what is done in logistic regression. What
So
we
is
do
it
with
only
software-
binary, or
Huh?
is this classification using logistic regression only binary or
Yeah,
multi-class?
it's binary classification for time being. So multi-class logistic regression is also there, but what we discuss is binary. So in fact, I think it is somewhat close to like softmax layer and class and later class and class. It is somewhat closer to that. So probably that we will discuss in the next some other class, or even video lecture if possible I can make and send it to you. Okay, so what I suggest is go through the video lectures and to the extent possible do the assignments and other things from your side with exploring your own your own ways for the limitations that you have with you. Okay, and then probably if something is very important, bring to my notice so that actually I can suggest something.
Sir, I had a doubt regarding the MLIP project.
Yeah.
We have to like put the demo as well inside the presentation, or all the code and all needs to be made to you separately.
No, actually, you can probably, what I suggest, if you people can create some GitHub links or even some nice way of sending it, it would be good. So rather than sending all the codes and all like that.
Still, sir, some demo is necessary to be implemented in the presentation.
Demo, usually what I suggest is in the presentation, before presentation itself, you keep the results and small demo recorded. That also get embedded, say, few 2 minutes demo on your project work, explaining, say, very briefly some key commands of your code or key aspects of your code, and then results, small video of results, something like that. And then you put it within the presentation, and then make a small video recording of your whole presentation along with that.
Okay, sir.
So results and code section, you make a small separate video and put it in the bigger presentation video.
Sir.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, is it enough if the work is only a reproduction of some research paper and nothing new has been done yet?
Yeah, that is fine. That's okay. So as long as you understand well and do, that is fine. That too, if you do reasonably some not very simple paper that of order of some small programming assignment. So if you take slightly difficult paper and you understand, implement even the GitHub codes available and demonstrate on some data, that is good enough.
Okay.
So to the extent possible, demonstrate on your own data. But if that is not possible in some cases, you can take some good data sets online and do it. And especially what I suggest is those who are applying some method, it is better to evaluate on a slightly bigger data. Just don't show your results only on one image, 2 images, and then wind up the things. Okay, at least you experiment on, say, now in thousands of data, right? So thousands of data samples. So at least on small data set which has thousands of data samples. So it is better to evaluate and do quantitative assessment and other things like that. In some cases where you do very specific things like number plate recognition or something like that, then at least few hundreds or few at least tens and 20s of data you should experiment. Not just with one result. If you just wind up, I think it is not that good. So when you evaluate on slightly bigger data, you need to bring some quantitative assessment. Okay, and then few visual assessment also should be shown. Fine. Are there any other questions? Okay. So if there are no other discussions, we will stop here. So thank you then.